Have you ever noticed as a woman that you find it hard to like people if you think they don't have any problems?
It's Channelmom with Jenny Dean Schmidt. We're here for you.
If you think that everything's okay in their life and they have a fabulous home and a beautiful family and you know, they're a size 2 and everything always goes well for them. And it's a little harder sometimes to like folks that seem like they're perfect. And my goal really is today, not actually to get you to like me. I'm not telling you that I'm not perfect just so that you like me. More than that, it's just to say, hey, I'm going to be real today on the show. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my past that you may not have heard about. And I'm hoping that it's one of those stories where you'll go away and you'll say, I needed to hear that today. Because I didn't have a strong faith in God, I was somebody who was really vulnerable to fear. And there were a couple incidents in my life that only served to further this fear. Number one, when I was about 5 years old, I came down with meningitis, and it was the most dangerous kind, I believe. We were in Canada on a trip. My parents had to bring me to a hospital. I believe that I heard the doctor say that he thought I only had a 50-50 chance of living. I remember them putting me into sort of a quarantined room. They told my parents that they had to leave at a certain hour, and my parents abided by that. So I remember standing in the 10th story window of this Canadian hospital. I remember getting up, being very sick, and standing in this 10th story window to look for my parents in the parking lot as they left the building. And as they walked away, I remember thinking that this could be the last time I saw them, because this little girl that I was thought she was going to die. And then when I was 11, I was growing up in Minnesota and went sledding. And when my friend's dad took me home and dropped me off from going sledding, I got out of the car and slammed the door. It was an evening time, so it was dark out. And my scarf got caught in the door. And the gentleman did not see that my scarf was caught in the door, so he drove away in his Cadillac, dragging me behind him. So I remember thinking, I'm going to die now. And I remember picturing that I was underneath the car. And with a vague faith that I had of a child at that point, I said, God, thank you for a good life. And I remember sort of folding up and waiting to die. I'd been dragging for about 1.5 miles. And we entered a highway. And when we entered that highway, cars behind me started to blink their lights and honk their horns at the man driving. And I remember him pulling over and stopping. And I was, lying there beside his car with my scarf still in his door. And I remember all these people gathering around me and looking at me to see if I was okay. And I remember looking up, kind of like an emergency room scene where you look up at the doctors. And I remember saying, thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, God, that I had lived through that. By the way, in the midst of all this, I vowed that I would marry my nursery school sweetheart. And that was one of the ambitious goals that I had. And I did grow up to marry my nursery school sweetheart. So that was kind of cool. We used to sleep on little nursery school mats together, and now we get to sleep in a great big giant bed. After this childhood and after deciding that I wanted to be a television reporter, I became very ambitious and did a lot of internships and projects and wrote a lot of letters to try to get myself in the door in a lot of places. I became a radio disc jockey, believe it or not, way back when I was 16. Along the way, I became a TV reporter. And let me tell you, I bought into the popular culture value system that says that if you're in the spotlight, if you're on a screen somewhere, if you're popular in the public eye, then you are more important than the rest of society. I was on TV in Cleveland. I'd been on TV in a number of markets, and I was on TV in Cleveland. After I had our first child, my son Otis, the news director saw it fit to not re-sign me to the station. So I lost my job. And I had gotten my identity, my sense of importance, my sense of self-worth from being on television. And I'll tell you what, I think in all kinds of ways, we all buy into certain things in our culture that make us feel more important. If we have a big house, a nice car, a certain salary, if we have wear a certain size dress, if we have a prestigious job, like I thought I did when I was on TV, we buy into that, and that's what gives us our value and significance. Well, that went away, and in the end, it was a good thing. But at the time, it was devastating. So I went into a postpartum depression that I think was partly triggered by no longer having my identity. And that changed everything for me. I stood up and I thought, I really believe that Jesus came to hold me in the form of my baby boy.